Welcome to day 2 of our GDPR 5-day challenge. Today we are going to be looking at data subject rights. If you've not already watched the introduction to the GDPR video from yesterday, I suggest you go and have a look at it and work through it. And I hope you've all been able to do the 30-minute challenge that I set you at the end of yesterday's video. So today, as I say, we're going to look at the data subject rights and specifically the GDPR rights of individuals. So what rights do they have? Well, let's go through them one by one. Remember, the individual is, remember the individual is the data subject. So they have the right to be informed. So basically what this means is that via your privacy policy is typically the way that you do this. You inform the data subjects what processes or what actions you are taking on their personal data. And it's important to remember that even just viewing somebody's data on screen is considered to be processing that data. So, even if you think, well, I'm not changing the data, so do I need to let them know about that? Yes, you do, because you're actually looking at their data. So anything like that, any processes like that, you should really detail, not in great detail, just an outline detail, but include them in your privacy policy. So say, we use your information so that we can fulfill your orders. We use your information so that we can keep you updated with our latest offers. We use your information so that we can keep in contact with you for customer support. Whatever it is, whatever reason you're using their data, we use your data because we employ you. Whatever the reason is for using the data, make sure you include it in your privacy policy so that you're clearly telling the data subjects what you're doing with their data, because they have the right to know. They have a right of access. So a individual can send you what's called a data subject access request, or a DSAR. You might have a form for it. They might send you an email. They might even just speak to you on the phone or via your online chat on your website. However they do it is equally valid. You might have a form, they don't have to fill it in. You might ask them to be specific, but they don't have to be. They might just say, I want to know everything you've got about me. But hopefully they won't. Most people are actually quite helpful, and they will tell you what it is they're looking for in some detail. And obviously that narrows down for you what you have to find, because one thing is, make sure you only supply them with what they're asking for. So if they only want to know about emails that they've sent to you or you've sent to them in the last 30 days, only worry about what's been sent in the last 30 days. Don't send them something you sent them 3 years ago. They haven't asked for that. So just read carefully what it is they're asking you for. But if they are asking you for everything, then you need to supply everything. And the other bad news with that is that they can say how they want it supplied. And typically, the two main ones, obviously, are either as a file via email, or maybe via something like WeTransfer if there's a lot of information, or they want it printed out on paper. And they're perfectly entitled to do that. They're perfectly entitled to say, I want a hard copy of all the data. And one of my clients is the Housing Association. They had someone who wanted all their data on hard copy. There's actually been a resident of that Housing Association for a good number of years. And it ended up that the Housing Association had to hire a van to deliver all the printouts to them. But if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. And the other bad news is you can't charge for it, at least initially. If someone regularly puts in requests, like every week, then they're contacting you to say, I want to know what you hear about, then, you can then charge them for it. Or if their request is clearly just vexatious, then you can charge them for it. But I would say be careful on the vexatious one. Seek advice from someone like myself before you decide that's the reason you're not going to do it, or that you are going to do it, but you charge them. If you are going to charge them, what can you charge them? You charge them a reasonable rate per hour for the time that it's taken your staff or yourself to put that information together and send it to them. And it has to be a reasonable figure. So you can't say, I'm going to charge you £200 an hour, because how do you justify that unless that's what you normally charge? But if for most things, it's probably an admin charge of, I don't know, £10 an hour, £12 an hour to find the information for them. Is wouldn't be questioned as a fee that you're charging. So you do have that back, if you like, and we're going to talk a bit more about that a bit later. Once they've got all the data, they have the right to have it corrected. So if there's any errors in the data, they can say, hey, you've got this information wrong. You should correct it to whatever. I will just go back to the previous slide, actually, because one thing I forgot to say in right of access is if you have someone who makes a data subject access request, make sure that you know who it is who's making the request, that it is the person they say they are, or it's the solicitor or some professional acting on their behalf, and they can send you signed consent from the individual to release that information to them. It's really, really important, because if you don't check that and you send the information out to somebody just blind, you run the risk of instantly having a data breach because you've suddenly supplied someone else's information to the wrong person. So do make sure that you know who it is who's making the request. As I say, they have the right to rectification. So if there's a mistake, they can ask you to correct it, and you have 30 days to correct it. Just like I should have said on the previous slide as well, you have 30 days to supply the information to them. You can ask for more time if it's really, really complex, but you do have to justify why you want more time. So rectification, as I say, they can ask to be corrected. The right to erasure. Now, this is an interesting one because it's not actually a right to erasure. It's a right to request erasure. So someone can say, I want you to delete the data you hold about me. And you might be able to. It might be straightforward. If they're just in your contact list and you're just using it for marketing, then hey, just delete them. What's the big deal? But if they're on your payroll, or if they've ordered things from you, or you've done work from them under contract, it may well be that you can't actually delete their data because you have one of those other valid bases for holding information. If you remember yesterday, or in the first video, we talked about the different bases for holding information. It may well be you're holding data under one of those other bases. And if you are, then they can ask you to erase it, and you might consider erasing it, but you might not erase it. So you have a choice. You can either erase it, or you can write back to them and say, we're not deleting it, we're not erasing the data because whatever the reason is. They have a right to restrict processing. So they can say, okay, as an employee, for example, they might say, okay, I'm happy for you to run it from hold the information from my payroll, but I don't want you to send me company newsletters. I don't want you to send me, I don't know, whatever else you send, Christmas cards. And they're perfectly entitled to do that. And if they do that, then you have to make a note of that so that you don't carry out that processing for those people. Quite rare, actually, in my experience, that someone does restrict the processing, but they have the right to. They have the right to data portability. So this tends to be the case with employees more than anybody, that they have the right to ask for the data that you hold about them in a commonly usable form. So typically that would either be a CSV file, a comma separated variable file, or an XML file, so that they can pass it on to their new employer. And they have the right to do that. And again, you have 30 days to provide that information to them. And there's no reason to object to it, really. You really should just do it and provide that information to them. They have the right to object. So they can object to you processing their information. And that might be that they, just don't want you to process their information at all. And again, that comes back to, as I was saying earlier, it depends on what the other reasons are that you're holding their data. If they're objecting to you marketing to them, then just stop marketing to them. It's not worth making a hassle over. But if it's something else, then consider stopping that processing, or you can write to them and explain why you can't. And then they have a right regarding automated profiling and decision making. And this is quite an important one because I've got one client as an example, where they have one employee who objects to their payroll being processed automatically. Doesn't like it, doesn't trust computers, never has trusted computers, doesn't want their payroll processed via payroll system, or in their case, payroll bureau. So they have to, for that one individual, have someone in their accounts department who calculates his payroll manually. And it's perfectly in his rights to do that. I mean, it might not do wonders for his promotion prospects, but he's perfectly entitled to do it. And so if someone does that, then you have to find a way around it and work with them. So talking of data subject access requests, I just want to re-echo some of the things that I've already sort of covered on this, really. The request can be in writing or verbal. So someone on the phone just says, oh, by the way, can you send me all the information you hold about me? Or can you send me the emails, copies of the emails that mention me since the last 3 months when we've been having this problem? Then they're perfectly entitled to do that. And you have to hunt through and find that information and send it to them. Remember, if you are sending information, by the way, to somebody to satisfy their subject access request, that they're only entitled to see data about them. So if you've got a document or a report which not only includes data about them, but data about other people, make sure you redact all the information about other people before you send it to them. I was actually working with a client on this morning, and one of their data subjects has made a data subject access request where the particular document, by the time that we'd redacted everything related to other people, the only thing that was left on the report about this person was their name and their email address. They're probably going to complain about the fact that so much of the page has been redacted, but hey, they can't see data relating to other people. You can only see data relating to yourself. As I said earlier, make sure you confirm the identity of the person. Generally, you do that by asking to see a signature and probably asking to see either a recent photograph and or a utility bill to verify the address. Now, sometimes this can get incredibly tricky. I've got one client who received a data subject access request and the signature was just an X. It actually came by the gentleman's solicitor, but the consent was just an X on a piece of paper. When we questioned it with the solicitor, he said the client can't write, so all they can do is all they do for their signature is put an X. I don't know about you, but one X to me that's not very much like another, so I'm not quite sure you verify with an X that it is the right person. But they also couldn't provide a utility bill because they were currently serving at His Majesty's pleasure in prison. And so they weren't receiving any utility bills. So we ended up having to get a signed letter from the governor of the prison that the gentleman was in, confirming that he was indeed there and he was this person. But it's what you need to do. You need to be certain before you release information that the person you're releasing it to is the right person. As I said earlier, you have 30 days to respond. And on top of that, then, do you have to reveal everything? The answer is probably pretty well yes, but there might be exceptions. If there's something that you believe would do mental harm to the person, if you revealed it to them, then you can withhold that information from them. But you better be prepared to know, if you get questioned on that later by the ICO or by their solicitor for the other side, you better be sure of your reasons why you're not revealing it. If you have something that you're not quite sure, do we reveal this or not, or do we redact this or not, or whatever, then speak to someone like myself. And as I say, resupplying the data, it's up to them. When the person makes a request, they can say either, I'd like this, on email, which is the way most people do it. If you do send a data as an attachment to an email, of course, make sure you password protect it, zip it, password protect it, send the password in a separate email. Don't send the password in the email that you send the data with, please. Or you might use a service like WeTransfer and transfer the data that way. Or, as I say, some people will, either because that's the way they want it or simply out of pure malice, will ask for it to be on printed paper. It's a perfectly legitimate way for them to ask for it. Or they could ask for it, by the way, as a CSV file or an XML file, like we were talking about under data portability. Again, perfectly entitled to them ask it that way. I've never seen anybody actually ask for it that way unless it is just for data portability. So that's it for today. Nice short one today, but I hope it's told you a bit about data rights for a data subject. But of course, it wouldn't be a challenge without a task for you for tomorrow, for you to complete today. So the task is draft a response to a data subject access request, including the steps your organization would take to verify the identity of the requester and gather the necessary information. So think about that. Draft a response to a data subject access request, including the steps your organization would take to verify the identity of the requester and gather the necessary information. If you're not sure, then watch this video through again and hopefully you'll pick it up from what I've said there. But if you have any questions, that's me. And you can contact me either by email or by phone if you have any serious immediate issues. Please, if possible, contact me by email because I am often busy with client work, so or creating courses like this. So I might not necessarily be able to pick up your phone call when you call me. So as I say, please, if you've got a query, email it to me and or give me a call. And with that, that's it for day 2. So we are now 2/5 of the way through the challenge. And I look forward to speaking with you again tomorrow.